Welcome to Comparative Federal Systems, POS 443. Study Section 1, Federalism. Introduction. We will start this course by exploring the concept and features of federalism and the strengths and weaknesses of the system. Finally, we will examine centralization and decentralization of government systems. Learning outcomes. After you have studied this study section, you should be able to 1. Explain the meaning and operations of the concept of federalism. 2. Highlight the strengths and weaknesses of federalism. 3. Point out features of centralization. 4. Discuss decentralization of governmental system. Federal systems. Federal systems of government have been more common than non-federal systems. Over a third of the world's population is governed by states that have some kinds of federal structure. These states include the USA, Brazil, Pakistan, Australia, Mexico, Switzerland, Nigeria, Malaysia, and Canada. Federal systems are based upon a compromise between unit and regional diversity, between the need for an effective central power and the need for checks or constraints on that power. Features of federalism. The relationship between federal, national government and state, regional government is determined not just by constitutional rules but also by a complex of political, historical, geographical, cultural, and social circumstances. In the USA, Canada, Australia, and India, decentralized party system have safeguarded the powers of state and regional governments. The features of federal system. 1. Two relatively autonomous levels of government. Both central government, the federal level, and regional government, the state level, passes a range of powers which the other cannot encroach upon. In Germany and Austria, for instance, a system of administrative federalism operates in which central government is the key policy maker and provincial government is charged with the responsibility for the details of policy implementation. Number 2. Written constitution. The responsibilities and powers of each level of government are defined in a codified written constitution. The relationship between the central and the periphery is therefore conducted within a normal legal framework. The autonomy of each level is usually guaranteed by the fact that neither is able to amend the constitution unilaterally. For example, amendments of the U.S. Constitution require the support of 2/3 of both houses of Congress and 3/4 of the 50 state legislatures. 3. Constitutional arbiters. The centralization which has occurred in all federal systems in the 20th century has invariably been sanctioned by the courts. 4. Linking institutions. In order to foster cooperation and understanding between federal and state levels of government, the regions and provinces must be given a voice in the processes of central policy making. This is usually achieved through a bicameral legislature in which the second chamber or upper house represent the interests of the states. Strengths and weaknesses of federalism. Strengths of federal systems. 1. One of the chief strengths of federal system is that, unlike unitary systems, they give regional and local interests a constitutionally guaranteed political voice. 2. Federalism. As diffusing government power, it creates a network of checks and balances that help to protect individual liberty. 3. Federalism has provided an institutional mechanism through which fractured societies have maintained unity and coherence. Weaknesses of federal system. 1. As a result of the growth of economic and social intervention and central government's own greater revenue-raising capacities. 2. Constraining central authority. They make the implementation of both economic or social programs more difficult. 3. The danger of federalism, however, is that by breeding governmental division, it may strengthen centrifugal pressures and ultimately leads to disintegration, centralization, and decentralization of governmental systems. Features of centralization. 1. National unity. Central government alone articulates the interest of the whole rather than the various parts, that is, the interests of the nation rather than those of sectional, ethnic, or regional groups. 2. Uniformity. Central government can establish uniform laws and public services which help people to move more easily from one part of the country to another. 3. Equality. Decentralization has a disadvantage that it forces peripheral institutions to rely on the resources available in their locality or regions. 4. Prosperity. Only central government, for instance, can manage a single currency, control tax and spending policies with a view to ensuring sustainable growth and, if necessary, provide an infrastructure in the forms of road, railways, airports, and so on. On the other hand, there are limits to the amount of centralization that is possible or desirable. In general, the responsibility vested in peripheral institutions are those that are domestic in the sense that they primarily address the needs of the domestic population. Features of decentralization: participation, responsiveness, legitimacy, liberty, participation. Local or regional government is certainly more effective than central government in providing opportunities for citizens to participate in the political life of their community. Responsiveness. Peripheral institutions are usually closer to the people and more sensitive to their needs. Legitimacy. Physical distance from government affects the acceptability or rightness of its decisions. Liberty. As power tends to corrupt, centralization threatens to turn government into a tyranny against the individual. Study section summary. In this study section, we learned that there are limits to the amount of centralization that is possible or desirable. The prayer to shift all the responsibilities and decision-making power from central to peripheral bodies is, however, considerable. Characteristics of federalism are: A. Historical similarities. B. Existence of our external threats or desire to play a more effective role in international affairs. C. Geographical size. D. Cultural and ethnic heterogeneity. Federalism, in short, has often been an institutional response to societal divisions and diversities. End of study section 1. Thank you for listening.